We're going to look at Web Active Directory's IIS admin password solution. The IIS admin password tool was a solution shipped by Microsoft in IIS 6 and earlier releases. It allowed users who had the change password at next logon flag set in Active Directory, as well as expired passwords, to reset their password using a web page. As of IIS 7, Microsoft changed its implementation, and you can no longer authenticate against websites that have integrated or basic authentication requirements. Our solution allows you to get around this. So taking a look at the solution, we have a simple web page here, and it's a protected application that we have put a front end on. So essentially what we're doing is adding a layer of authentication and explicitly checking the status of the flags that cause authentication failures in IIS 7. So in this scenario, I merely enter my name and I click login. At this point, the application is checking to see if we need to reset the password or change the password. In this case, we don't need to, so we're going to be routed to the back-end application. So I can go ahead and authenticate with my normal credentials, and once I pass authentication, you can see here I have come out to my test page, I have my credentials, etc. Of course, we're dumping a lot of diagnostic information. Typically this would just be an application. We can also access other applications, in this case a different IIS application, and again we can see that the color has changed to indicate that we are moving back and forth. So essentially the IIS authentication works exactly as it normally does, and we just put a different front end on it to check the status of the password flag. Let's change things up a little bit. I'm going to come over to a server and access Active Directory users and computers. The user we're testing with, Sean Connor, currently has account options set. We're going to change the user must change password at next logon flag and go ahead and apply that. This means that the next time the user logs in, we want this user to change the password for the account. So when we come back to our initial login page, that would be the front end to your protected application, when we type in our credentials, or at least our username, and click login, it's going to check the status of that flag. In this case, you can see, instead of going to the authentication dialog we received before, we're actually rerouted to a replacement IIS admin password page. This functions extremely similar to the old Microsoft page, except for it actually uses anonymous authentication in IIS, and it allows you to come in and change the password. So at this case, in this point, we have actually pre-populated the username, so we can merely type in the credentials, and everything is going to be validated. So I'll type in an invalid password, for example. And let's go ahead and try to change our password. In this case, it actually goes against Active Directory. As you can see, we have a password change error because we didn't meet the requirements for the new password. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a new password that does meet the requirements, and then we should be able to go ahead and change our password. So as you can see, when we change the password successfully, we receive a message. Then we can click here to go on to our destination protected application. We get our authentication, so we authenticate, and I put in my new password, and we are routed to the IIS authentication test page that we saw before. So as you can see, we have a way to put a front end to test the status of the password change, and then we also have a way to allow a user to change the password. And finally, we have a way to allow IIS to control the authentication the same way it has for all your applications without getting fancy or making big changes to the IIS configuration. One final thing to mention, as I look at our web server, you can see that we have configured our test authentication application via the error pages to reroute 401.1 errors. It actually reroutes to this HTML file, and all that has is a simple header redirection to redirect all 401.1 authentication errors to our standard login page. That's where we can go and check the status. So again, that is another option that you have that you can use, is to reroute those particular types of errors.